So hello and welcome to Bold Business Bits podcast show. I'm delighted to be joined today by Lisa Wight, entrepreneur coach, SaaS founder and all-round fabulous woman. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, it's so exciting because I know that you're joining us from Spain.
I am.
And pray tell us what you're doing in Spain.
Well, I'm a digital nomad. I left the UK about 3 years ago. And so I spent a couple of years in Spain and a year in Southeast Asia while I've been running my businesses.
And do you just go there because you're enjoying the weather, or you just like traveling around, or are there contacts you have? Why are you in Spain? And
why am I in Spain? So I always wanted to go traveling. It was always a big dream, but for various reasons, personal relationships or businesses, I could never make it happen. And then when COVID hit, I left the UK, and my parents actually live in Spain. So they very kindly let me use their place as a base, and they look after my dog for me. And so, I'm visiting them at the moment before I go off again to Canada.
Oh, wow. So is the plan that you have now left the UK, or will you, you're just, okay. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, permanently left, and I'm looking for my base. So somewhere where I want to settle, but still be able to travel.
Yeah. So just testing out different countries at the moment.
Exactly. And different cultures.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be quite so impactful to how I like to be, the routine I like to have, what's important to me. But it's really interesting that the culture that you're in really impacts it.
Yeah, absolutely. But tell us about your business. So entrepreneur, coach, SaaS founder. Tell us more, please.
At the moment, I coach entrepreneurs to have a fuck yes life of business.
Ooh, love that.
And I really felt like a lot of people just focus on one area or the other. And I really wanted to focus on bringing the two together because they really inform and go hand in hand for people's quality of life. And I came to it in a very similar journey. I was able to create the fuck yes life that I wanted because I was able to create the fuck yes business that gave me the freedom, that gave me the finances. I really wanted to work with entrepreneurial people. They're the people that set me on fire and who I feel really charged about speaking with and spending time with. It was an obvious segue for me to go from what I've done in the past with business coaching and being a business owner and setting up companies and taking over a family business to actually taking up the coaching mantle again and helping people.
Tell us what makes fuck yes, fuck yes.
Well, it completely depends on you.
Okay.
So it's not, my version of a fuck yes life and business will be completely different to yours, and that's the beauty of it. So it's really about getting clear on what does fuck yes mean to you? Like what gets you jumping out of bed in the morning thinking, fuck yes, this is my life. I wouldn't change it for the world. And this is my business that empowers me and makes me feel really positive and energetic about being in it. What does that mean for you? And getting crystal clear on that, and then creating the pathway to achieving that. That's the key to it.
Fabulous. And so since you're a digital nomad, are your clients digital nomads too, or are they all near you, or how does that work?
I spent a number of years business coaching in the UK for small business owners. So a lot of my network is small businesses based in the UK. But I do have a number of kind of global clients, if you like, some who are digital nomads, some who aren't, some who want to become digital nomads. But it's not about being a digital nomad. That was just for me. That was my fuck yes. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to try all these new foods and meet all these new people and have these adventures while still being able to run 3 businesses and to be able to achieve my career aspirations. So I work with a lot of clients who don't want to be digital nomads, but they have their own version of it.
Business and life is such a joy, but amongst the joy, sometimes we have to go through these, the downtime, the troughs, as well as the high points. So can you share some of the, because it sounds like amazing, this fuck yes, but I'm pretty confident that there have been some troughs in the high moments because that's what happens in life. Are you happy to share some tough times you've been through and how you came out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's no light without darkness.
Yeah.
So like you say, there's no peaks without the troughs. And for me, my kind of stress, my adversity was really in the first 20, 25 years of my life. It all started when I was about 5. I went through about 10 years of being bullied at school by lots of different people. And, you know, we would report it to the teachers and nothing would happen and it would just get worse and worse. I would go home and then I would be getting bullied at home by my grandmother who lived with us and by one of my siblings. You know, we had a very difficult relationship. And it just meant that from the age of 5 to 14, there was no safe place for me. There was nowhere where I went that I felt loved or that I felt where I belonged. You know, it was always like, what's wrong with me? Why does everyone hate me? Like, why am I not good enough? You know, at the end of the day, what have I done wrong? And it just became suffocating, having nowhere to go where you're safe.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm really close with my parents and I had that kind of safety and that feeling of love with my parents, but everywhere else it was missing. By the time I was 8, that was the first time that I tried to take my own life because it was, I just remember sitting in my bedroom and crying, you know, those tears when you're a kid and you just can't breathe. And it's like I was just beaten down. I was getting beaten up and there was kind of physical abuse and emotional abuse and I just wanted it to stop. And so that was the only way I thought that it would stop. But luckily it didn't work. But there were another 2 more attempts by the time I was 14. And I think what happened when I was 14 is I ended up having a breakdown. And I just got so angry. I was angry at all the teachers. I was angry at all the adults. I was angry at the family members. You know, it was, you know, why isn't anyone protecting me? Why isn't anyone stopping this? Why is this being allowed to happen? And I just became the angriest teenager you could ever come across. And so I started getting in trouble at school. I started skipping out on classes. I started getting suspended. I started smoking. I started doing drugs. At first it was just smoking weed. Then it was taking pills and MDMA until it was ended up being cocaine. And by the time I got to, I think it was 2 or 3 days before my last day of secondary school, I had 6 suspensions by that point. I was on every report that the school could do. I was having to be picked up at lunch because I wasn't allowed in the school at lunch. And I got expelled for, it was actually something I didn't do. And I promise, I know everyone says that, but I had done all the other horrible things. But yeah, I got expelled because of something my friend said and the teacher mistook it for me. But because I'd spent a year being on report and being really good and trying to behave and so I could do my GCSEs and get my grades, when they just told me, no, you're expelled, we're not even looking into it, I lost my temper and that didn't go down very well. So when my friend eventually did own up to it, they were like, well, she's expelled anyway because of how she responded. So I got expelled. I was still able to sit my GCSEs and I got enough to get into 6th form. But by the time I got into 6th form, I had a cocaine habit. I'm about 13 stone now. I went down to about 7.5 stone and it was literally just waking up, having some Coke, having a cup of tea, having some Coke, having a shower. It was literally just that prevalent in my life. And I managed to skirt through 6th form because I picked pretty easy coursework-based courses and then applied for university. But by this time I was well into that world. I was in dodgy relationships with drug dealers. And I decided to delay me starting university because I was in this world and that's all I wanted to be in. And so it was in between 6th form and university and I was in this relationship. I was living with my boyfriend at the time and he was quite a big drug dealer for the area. He and the people that he used to deal drugs with, they would cut it up to make it go further and put stuff into it. And his friends came to him and said, you know, you've got a shed in your garden. We want you to put a cocaine press in the shed.
Wow.
And you've got a spare room. You know, it was a tiny little house in North Cambridge. You've got a spare room. We'll make it look like someone's living there. We'll get fingerprints. We'll get fake ID so that if you get raided, you can just say it's your mystery lodger. And, luckily I had the good sense to say, no, that's ridiculous. And then a few weeks later, they came back and they said, right, we want Lisa to drive to Germany and, fill the car with heroin, and drive it back to England.
Wow.
And I was like, right, okay, how much are you going to pay me for this? And they said £10,000. And I was like, okay, so if I get caught, how many years in jail is it? And they were like, yeah, it's about 10 years. I was just like, right, so you're basically paying me £1,000 for a year of my life. I was even at my lowest lows, I was like, that's not a great return on investment. And so I refused. And this time, my boyfriend was quite violent and he was abusive, and he hit the roof. And he threw me around. There was broken crockery everywhere, and he was attacking me, and so much so that his dog, called Joe, who was, I assume he's not around anymore, was this gorgeous Alsatian. He actually attacked. He tried to protect me from what this guy was doing. And it was at that point where I was like, how did I get here? 10 years ago, I wanted to be a human rights lawyer, and I was clever, and I was reading lots, and I was doing this, and now look at me, I've spent 5 years throwing it all away and drinking and doing drugs. And it was clear to me. And, all the last year or so leading up to this, I was being pulled over by the police and we were getting searched. And it was just a horrible road to be going down. And it just became apparent in that moment where he had me pinned up against the kitchen wall and he's screaming in my face that he was insisting that I would go and do this. It just was clear to me that I was either going to end up in jail or dead. Yeah. It was that simple to me. That was where I was going. It was that light bulb moment. It was one of those times in my entire life where I just could see everything so clearly. And I ended up going back to my parents in tears, just saying, I've made a terrible mistake. Can you please help me? I need to get out. So I got out of that house, and he started threatening to burn our house down and to kind of come after me. And all of my friends were in that drug environment. I ended up leaving the country and going to Tenerife for the summer, and I had a job with Thomas Cook, and I ended up escaping to because I had the place at university waiting for me, and this was kind of March time, so it was like I needed to do something for 6 months. So I managed to escape to Tenerife, and in that time I got clean. I kind of pulled myself together as much as you can, and then went to university in the September. And it was at that point I was like, right, I need to do something different, and I need to almost make up for the rubbish that's happened in the last few years. So I then I was like, right, I studied marketing, advertising and public relations, and I was like, right, I'm going to get a first. And as long as I can get a first, then that's just going to make up for everything. As you do when you're young, you think these things will just put a plaster on it. But I did, and that's what I did. I kind of got my head down, I got a first, and I started my first company in my second year of university, and I've kind of never looked back.
Amazing. And so that is an amazing story, and thank you for sharing. But if you went, so you were in this, like, I've only heard about what drugs do to you, but, did you just like get clean yourself, or did you get help from somebody, or how did you just escape from the environment and so everything just changed?
Yeah, part of it was escaping the environment, but the job that I went into, I was working 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. every day for 4 months. Right. And it just meant I had no time. That, what's that saying? Idle thumbs. There was no time. I was constantly looking after guests, picking them up from the airport, taking them out, doing things like that. So there was a little bit of drugs in the area, but there wasn't a lot because the police in Tenerife would come down hard on it as well. So it was a case of being in a new environment, not having any time, and also not having the drugs available to be able to do it, even if I wanted to. Yeah. And that was enough for me to then get into the university where I wasn't around that situation anymore. And then it was a case of, okay, I know I have this addictive personality. I need to make sure I'm never around people like that. And that's what I've done over the last 15 years now, is I've refused to be in the room when there's anyone like that around, or if that situation's going on.
Yeah. Wow.
But it is, I tell you what, it is always there, because I was in, where was I? I was near Bali, on an island near Bali, only a year or so ago. And I've been clean for 15 years now. And we went to a beach party, and there were drugs, and I could see the drug dealer, and I don't drink alcohol anymore either, so I was sober. But I had to sit there for 15 minutes and just talk myself round, not going anywhere near it, because that 16-year-old me, I could feel her inside just starting to creep out and say, oh, well, it's been so long, you'll be fine, you can just have one. And so that really shocked me, that was still there and present.
Yeah. Well spotted as well.
Mm.
I guess because you got that experience, I guess you can go anywhere and just who's got them.
You know what they look like. That sounds really mean of me, really stereotypical, but yeah.
Well, there's drugs are, I'm in Scarborough here in North Yorkshire, and I've been quite, I'm open-minded, but there's people just walking around and you can smell marijuana. They're just walking around openly smoking it. And I told the police, I said, did you know there's people just wondering, oh yeah, we know that, but you need to report it. And anyway. But so on to happier things. So you went straight into business. You've never worked with anybody else. You just set up your business and off you went from there.
Yeah, I had lots of jobs when I was younger, waitresses, telesales, the holiday repping. I have been employed, but I've not been employed as a career.
Yeah.
I just set my first business up in 2008 and just grew from there.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm a business coach too, as you know, and so I work with people and my own business as well. It's you get your ups and your downs, and the thing is, you just have to remember that when you're in a down bit, you just have to hang on, because there's going to be an up at some stage. So you just keep on persisting. But for you, have you had a particular trough in your business? Maybe not as to the same extent as your childhood, but have you had that you'd like to share and how you came out of it?
When was this? About 2014, 2015. We just launched a second company to sister to the business I was in, and it was providing additional services to our existing customer base, but it was a different service. And I was working with a business coach. We were growing and everything was great. And then 18 months in working with this business coach, all of a sudden it was like a house of cards, and it just collapsed. And it got to the point where I rang this business coach up and I said, I literally don't know how I'm going to make payroll. I don't know how I'm going to make VAT. I don't know how I'm going to pay anything that I'm meant to pay to HMRC. We are up the creek without a paddle. And he turned around to me and he said, where's your cash flow forecast? And I said, my what? And he said, yeah, your cash flow forecast, it's the most important document in a business. And I was like, hang on a minute. If it's so important, why have we never spoken about it before in 18 months? And he said, well, Lisa, you always want to talk about marketing and sales.
Oh, dear.
And what ended up happening is the business, we closed it down with £250,000 worth of debt.
Wow.
And, it was that time that I was having conversations about, do we go bankrupt? We literally were just insolvent. What do we do? And I ended up going into not an official agreement, but a very informal private agreement, because I had dozens of suppliers who were all similar to me. They were small businesses that extended us credit terms, some to 10, 15, 20,000 pounds. And then on top of that, we had the bank with the overdraft and credit cards, because although I was very good personally with my credit cards, it was like, I just need to buy the team another month for them to get the sales in for us to make it work. And I ended up putting on all these expenses onto the credit cards, which was just the worst thing I've ever done. And so, we had £250,000 worth of debt. And if I'd have gone bankrupt, I would have killed at least 4 or 5 of them. They would have gone out of business.
Yeah.
And so I had to look at it and figure out a plan and say, right, I'm going to go into a long-term debt repayment plan. And, I had to bring people up that I owed £20,000 to and say, I can literally only afford to pay you £10 a week.
Yeah.
That's it, £10 a week for now. And then once I've cleared some of those other debts, it will snowball. And it took me about 2 years until I could clear all of the supplier debt and then work on the kind of the banking debt, if you like. But that was horrific because I had felt, first and foremost, it was my mistake. I'm the head of the company. It's my responsibility. This is all on me, first and foremost. And then I had to make redundancies and let people go. And I'm really kind of aware of the fact that the people who work for me, whether they're employed or whether they're contractors, I'm helping them put food on their table.
Yeah.
And so I had this horrible guilt around the fact that I was having to now let people go and put them into a situation that they obviously didn't want to be in. But then on top of that, I felt let down by the business coach that was meant to have been helping me. And I also was then starting to question my own worthiness and my own skill and my own ability. And I was really lucky that I met someone at that time he's turned into a magnificent friend, but he, was first and foremost a mentor, and he really helped look at what was going on. And he was like, right, Lisa, we need to get you out of this. And if it hadn't been for him, I honestly don't know what would have happened. But that was probably one of the toughest business situations that comes to mind.
There's so much responsibility. It's not just it's not a hobby, is it? There's so much responsibility. As you grow your business, more and more people become impacted by what you do. Both of those crises, if you like, it's like something magic's happened to help you out. You had that flash of awareness when the guy was smashing the life out of you, and then also when the coach let you down, basically, that you met this amazing guy. So I just love that at the moment of crisis, something appears in your life to show you a different road. I'm a big believer in that kind of thing, actually.
Absolutely. And, when that all happened back in 2014, 2015, I had no thoughts of being a business coach. I had lots of friends who owned businesses that I would have, just informally advise, and they'd always say, you should be a business coach. So I had no thought of that. But when I did become a business coach in 2018, I looked back on that and I was like, right, how am I going to make my approach different? How am I going to protect my clients from what happened to me? And then that became the foundations for what Hubix is today. And now Hubix is a software tool that business coaches use to help their clients from making the same mistakes that business coach made nearly 10 years ago. Yeah. So, it's funny, isn't it? When you're going through this stuff, it's kind of like, why is this happening to me? What have I done to deserve this? You can't ever really see the dots joining up. They just look like massive steps that you need to make. And it's not until you can look back on your life and look over 5, 10, 15 years, you could be like, wow, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have met that person. Yeah. This opportunity wouldn't have come out of it. I wouldn't have learned that lesson, and I wouldn't have then created this value. And I think it's when you can have that level of awareness, you then don't get burdened with regret. Because although, the things I've talked about are horrible and I wouldn't wish them on anyone, I'm actually in a place where I can say I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with who I am. And that wouldn't be the case if it wouldn't have been for everything that happened. So I don't regret what has happened. Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. And I think also, you said you learned from lessons, but the biggest thing is in a way, you've got this gift now. It's taught you, you've created this tool, this system, Hubix, that now can help other people. So it's sort of led you to a purpose, if you like, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, it was only about a month ago, I had one of the coaches who uses Hubix, he kind of phoned me up and he said, I've just stopped a client from going bankrupt because of Hubix.
Yeah.
And it was such a full circle moment for me, because I was like, this is why we set it up. This is why we did it. And I can kind of sleep easy now, because that mission of increasing business success rates, there you go. There's living proof of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what's next then? I know you're busy finding new places to explore, but what's next for you personally in your business?
Yeah, so business-wise, I'm really focusing on Fuck Yes, the Entrepreneur Coach, and I'm writing my first book, How to Live a Fuck Yes Life.
Woohoo! So, when's it available?
Next year. It'll be next year now.
Right.
But people can come to my website, lisawight.com, or the Lisa Wight on Instagram if they want to keep up to date with what's going on. So I'm really excited about that. And I really want to create this community around, helping entrepreneurs to achieve their fuck yes life and business. And then personally, I'm going to be heading over to Canada because it's been calling to me for 10 years now. There's something for me in Canada. I'm not quite sure what, but I'm going to go and find out.
Yeah, love that. I love this continual curiosity. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that phrase.
And one more thing before I let you go, Lisa, is if so I'm standing before you, I'm just about thinking about setting up my business. What's the number one piece of advice you'd give me?
Oof. Oh, there's so many. There's so much that comes to mind. Okay. The two things that really do come to mind is
have two, then.
Get crystal clear on your target audience and the problem you are solving for them. I think too many people jump into, I want to do this thing over here, and they forget that. And then if you build your business without having that key piece of the puzzle, you're definitely going to fail. So get really crystal clear on who your target audience is and the problem that you're solving for them and why it's important to them. And then my second bit is get advice from people, but surround yourself with people who you want to be like. We're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So make sure, even if you only know them from afar and you're reading like Tony Robbins or Jack Canfield or whoever it is, make sure you're having people around you who are operating at the level that you want to go to, and get advice.
Yeah. Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Good. And it's been wonderful to have you here today. So thank you.